shit. Here we go again.
Guys, Jim here. Welcome in once again. As you see before you, a familiar logo. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you've seen a multitude of knives from PMP Knives under my lens. And if you haven't, well then I'm a little bit offended. You should go back in my video catalog and watch some of them because they're some of the coolest, wildest, over-the-top knives in the entire knife industry. It is insane what this company puts out. Today, I'm going to show you another insano knife from PMP Knives and the mind of Patrick Holenstein. For those that don't remember, Patrick and PMP Knives are based in Switzerland. And what they do is they partner up with a multitude of different manufacturers, different factories all around the world, including, yes, China, to produce some really high quality, yet very over-the-top knives and put them out for actually pretty good prices. Case in point, the Grizzly inside of this box is going to be $350. Now, for a lot of people that aren't big knife collectors, they're going to think, well, $350 is a lot of money. In the world of knife collecting, it's really kind of a drop in the bucket compared to $500, $800, $900 for really high-end production or decent mid-techs. And of course, customs going up into the thousands, 10,000s, and hundreds of thousands of dollars each. So $350, I think, is a good, reasonable price. We'll open up the Pelican style case or Otterbox style case, however you want to look at it. And we see the COA card greeting us right away. And that is the Grizzly logo. And there's some quick specs for you on there. And it's not often that we see PMP work with D2 steel. So I'm going to say right off the bat, I'm a little bit disappointed with that because they've done so many great things with M390, with Dama steel, and some other great steels. So to see D2, I was kind of like, it's shocking. Wasn't quite expecting that. But look at this black beauty. I am in love with the pitch of black in this DLC. Really, really well done. And yes, once again, enormous, ridiculously over the top. And before we get into anything else, let's do some quick size comparisons. The last PMP that I had the opportunity to review is this bad boy right here, the Kodiak. And this was based off of, oh goodness, which one? Was it the Beast Kodiak? Grizzly Kodiak? I don't remember. Anyway, so that was the Kodiak, and there they are side by side. No matter how egregious the knives end up being, case in point, the Alpha Beast, the construction quality and the actions are truly remarkable. So yes, while you can look at these knives and go, there is no practical reason for anybody to need something in this size or this overly engineered, and you may be right, you can't ever call them cheap knives. They're not built cheap. The quality of the actions, and I missed the flipper tab there. What? Oh, I've still got oil all over this thing. Sorry, guys. It's got a pretty decent opening action, super smooth on the close. And this is not quite as over the top as some of their knives. As a matter of fact, the very next model I'm going to be reviewing is probably one of the most absurd things I have ever held in my hands. So you're going to want to stay tuned for this one because and I don't know if it's pronounced Titanio or Titanio, but whatever you want to call this utterly ridiculous knife, that will be coming up in a video shortly, probably in the next 48 hours. But I have come to love PMP knives over the years. I've had a wonderful opportunity to work with Patrick on getting the opportunity to showcase these knives before, in a lot of cases, before they hit the market. My two favorites to this day. Now, obviously, my original prototype Alpha Beast, which I don't have sitting out here because it's still being modified, still being customized. I know I've been saying that for over a year, but I assure you it is finishing up. Last I heard, it's done, and it'll be shipping to me very, very shortly. My favorites are still the Berserker and the Aries. These are a little bit thinner, a little bit easier to wield. And as you see, I'm trying to clean this one off a little bit. I've been using the Aries quite a lot. I have enjoyed carrying these knives and using them and cutting with them. And I'll be the first to admit, yes, they're over the top. Yes, they're ridiculous. Yes, they're almost clownishly big sometimes. But that is the purpose of the brand, is to push the envelope, go big or go home. That is Patrick's entire reason for creating this brand. And he could have done so in a way where he could have just made something ridiculous, crazy, over the top, but the mechanics didn't work out well. But he's put a lot of time and he has a lot of patience, apparently, to make sure that these things just come out fantastically made. All right, let's go ahead and close this up. We're going to get into the TLDW. But before I do that, I just want to give you a quick size comparison between that and a standard, normal, everyday EDC size knife, 3.5-inch blade. That is how much larger this thing is. It's truly crazy. And I'm never going to defend it and say, no, they're completely practical and necessary and this and that, because they're not. They're meant to be cool. They're meant to be fun. They're meant to be a show-off piece, and they certainly achieve that with every single model. Okay, TLDW, pros and cons of this brand new, all blacked out Grizzly. First pro for me is the fact that it's blacked out. I love a good blacked out knife. Now, unlike the Titanio, where even the hardware is blacked out, this does give you that bit of accent with the machined hardware. Next pro is going to be the ergonomics. Now, you should probably have a large hand to get the full appreciation for this knife because, again, it is very, very large. But as I mentioned before, it's not unwieldy. It's not as thick as the Alpha Beast, not nearly as heavy. This is a pocket hog. That's a 400 thousandths of an inch thick blade. So it's just under a half an inch thick. So yeah, that is, as much as I love it, is not carried very often because it weighs a lot. It's very thick. It takes up the entire pocket. Whereas something like this, if you're already into overbuilt knives, you like Medfords, you like Dyer wares, you like DSK Tactical, you like Scorpion 6, you like these big, crazy, thick, heavy, overbuilt knives, then you're absolutely going to love this. And I think this has a bit more finesse than many of the overbuilt knives that are out there on the market. Another pro, great action. It doesn't have the snappiest detent because you've got so much weight in this blade. You're already having to overcome the weight of the blade to get it to swing out. I think by having too strong of a detent would make this a very, very difficult knife to flip. So I like the action. Obviously, it's drop shutty just because of the length, the thickness, the weight of that D2 steel blade. I think it would close easily no matter how it was built, but it does have bearings. It is very, very, very smooth, so it's got a nice action. Another pro is the fact that the designs that Patrick comes up with are always unique and different. So no matter what type of knives you collect or your friends collect, this is going to be something special and different within your collection. It is unlikely that you're going to have anything else that's remotely similar unless you have other PMP knives. And obviously, even these two are very, very different. And now for the cons. Now, for me, this is not a con, but for many people, it will be. The overly large size. It is big, it's fairly thick, it's heavy. There's a lot going on here. It's going to take up a lot of room in the pocket. So do keep that in mind. I'm not exaggerating when I say this is a big knife, and we'll get to the specs here in just a couple of minutes. Oh, you can reverse flick it. Oh, I hadn't tried that yet. What a pleasant surprise. Another con for me is the fact that Patrick spends a lot of time making sure every detail is perfectly executed. So no matter how ridiculous and crazy one of his knives is, they're never impractical to the point where you're playing with it going, this is not one of my favorite knives to fidget with. There's a sharp edge right in here inside of the frame lock that your thumb will engage every single time you unlock it. And it is a large and very thick frame lock, so it takes a little bit of strength to do it. So yeah, you're gonna probably tear up your thumbs just a little bit. It's not as dehorned and rounded and smooth as most everything else. Let me see. I'm having a hard time remembering. This was a little tiny bit sharp in there. One of my favorites, the Berserker. Not very bad there. And I know that the Alpha Beast is nice and easy on the thumb. So yeah, I'm a little disappointed with that. Is it a deal breaker? No, but it is something that I would have preferred to see a little bit more attention to detail on. It looks really good, but one simple little bevel right there on the inside edge would have made all the difference in the world. It really, truly would have. Any other cons? I mean, I'll put it out there. D2 steel is not a premium steel. It can rust if you don't take care of it properly. But again, this is fully coated. You don't have to worry about the majority of the blade, but you still have to worry about the exposed steel at the secondary bevel at the edge. So you want to make sure you keep that touched up with EDCI solution or whatever your favorite corrosion inhibitor is to make sure that you don't have any issues. D2 is not known for holding its edge for an incredibly long time. So if this does end up being a user knife for you, you may have to strop it after each use. You may have to resharpen it a few times a year. And the great thing about D2 is it is easy to resharpen. It's not really a challenge at all. I just wish it had a longer edge holding capability because all the other knives that are sitting out here next to me, made by PMP, they're all really, really, really good steels that are great for EDC and great for use. Now, the design overall is pretty blocky, so that's going to get a little bit of a knock. But the honest to goodness truth is, when you look at it, you can see that. You're not being tricked. You're not being fooled. You look at that and go, that's a blocky design. And it is. It doesn't flow like, say, the Aries. You look at that and go, well, that's gonna feel good in the hand, and it really, really does. And that's why this is probably still my most carried PMP, and it vies for the position of my top favorite. And you can look and see that it's ergonomic, and you can see that it's going to be comfortable. And this is just straight bodied and blocky. And there is a market for that. There are many, many knives made by many, many companies that follow that same design principle. And again, my mind goes back to Medford when I look at big overbuilt knives. And Medford has a knife that has a handle shape very, very similar to this. So it's just one of those things that you have to know that you're going to like that before you buy it. But there are no surprises. You can look at it and see that it's a very straight-bodied, blocky design all the way around. Is it uncomfortable? No. It's just not as ergonomically pleasing as many of Patrick's other designs. And that's it for the pros and the cons. Let's get into the specs very quickly, shall we? Blade length of 4 inches, a full 4-inch cutting edge. You've got a nice sharpening choil there. It's going to make the longevity of that edge fantastic. You'll be able to resharpen it to your heart's content. Closed length, 5 1/4 inches. Overall length, are you ready for this? It's a big mamma jamma. 9 1/4 inches overall. 9 1/4 inches overall. That's insanity. Blade thickness is 254 thousandths thick. That is just a touch over a 1/4 inch thick. And I want to correct myself because I had forgotten until I got here to the specs part. This is on washers. It's not on ceramic bearings, so I apologize. Future self, while you're editing this, when I keep mentioning washers early on in the video, bearings, go in there and put a little note that says washers. So yeah, he's actually achieved a wonderfully smooth action just on washers, which if a knife is built right, washers can be every bit as smooth feeling as bearings. And such is the case here. So yeah, it's a big knife. It's a thick knife. It's not as thick as some of his knives have gone. But it's cool, man. If you really want to have a knife in your hand and feel like this is a man's knife, that's going to be a great choice for you. But then again, there are going to be other choices as well. I cannot wait to review this one. I'm tempted to just sit here in my studio, forego everything I was planning for the evening, and just record this one too while I'm already sitting here. It's so wild. It's so crazy. This, I feel, is over the top. This, I feel, is almost nonsensical, to be perfectly honest. Whereas the Grizzly, I think there are going to be plenty of guys out there that are going to find a practical, utilitarian use for it. Tell you one thing, if you're the weekender type, you like to go camping and hiking and all that kind of good stuff, you're going to have a good fixed blade with you, and you're probably going to want to have a good folder with you. This would be a really good heavy-duty folder. Now, it's not going to do a lot of the bushcrafting stuff because you do not have a very tall grind here. It's very shallow. It's a full flat grind. And make sure that primary is flat, because I know the tip grind is flat. Nope, because there's this little arch right here. So that is a hollow grind. It just didn't feel like it. So it's a very shallow hollow grind. So yeah, you're not going to be doing a lot of bushcraft stuff there because if you're cutting through thicker material, it's going to build up a bit and not slice very thinly. So keep that in mind. But this is that kind of knife. Maybe it is going to be your weekend getaway camping knife. It's that big, sturdy knife that folds, that feels a lot like it's as sturdy as a fixed blade. And that's really why a lot of overbuilt folders gained their popularity. And this really started in the 2010s, I guess would be the best way to look at it. Yeah, 2010, 11, 12, 13, around there, the overbuilt knife segment really, really exploded. And I think that was one of the reasons why, because people wanted a knife. They loved having their EDC pocket knives, something that was practical to carry every day, lightweight, fairly small, fits in a pocket easily, it's fairly discreet. But they wanted something that felt a little bit more robust than that for some more serious tasks. And that's where the overbuilt knives really, really came into play. And I think that's probably going to be the type of consumer that's going to be the most interested in this Grizzly. Now, do keep in mind that all PMP knives are limited editions or limited productions. Limited edition would mean that each individual knife was numbered. Some of his knives are. Limited production just means that there is going to be a set number of them, a small set number of them made. But there could be different variations over time. A limited edition will be made once in a certain number capacity, maximum capacity. They'll be numbered, and then that's it. They're done. So Patrick goes both ways. He does limited editions and limited productions on all of his knives. And they're usually around 200 or 300 pieces, and they're done. And in that 200 or 300 pieces, you could have 4 or 5 different combinations of finishes or materials or whatnot. Like this Black Beauty right here is only one version that's available of the Grizzly. There are standard bead blasted titanium. I believe there's some tiger stripe flamed titanium anodized. There's a few different variations available. So if you want the black, there are not going to be very many available for you to choose from. So I would say probably do it fairly quickly. Whew. That thing's got some recoil to it too. When that thing kicks over, when it locks up, it just kind of moves your hand a little bit. It's definitely got some recoil to it. So overall, my opinion is the typical build quality of PMP knives shines through. A couple tiny little things I'd love to see changed. Again, that little scallop, softening that edge inside of the lock would be my number one idea for Patrick. If he makes these again in the future, that would be a really, really great change. But the typical great build quality, affordable price for all of the mass of material that you're getting here. Beautiful finish work. This is a wonderfully uniform black. From the frame to the steel, it all looks good. They're not kind of mismatched. And we've seen plenty where, maybe the blade was almost a really super dark charcoal, and then the titanium would be black, or vice versa. This is all the same black all the way through. And it's got like a satin sheen to it. What I mean by that is not like a satin blade. Actually, this isn't a satin blade, but it's got satin flats. There you go. I don't mean that. I mean, when you compare it to something like the Titanio is very clearly a matte black as compared to this. This has almost like a satin sheen to it. And this is much more of a flat matte black. So it's a brilliant looking black. If you're a Harley guy, this is your vivid black versus your black denim. And it really is that stark of a difference when you put them side by side. It's got a really nice look to it. it will reflect a little bit of light, whereas the other one definitely does not. Nice finish work. I almost forgot to mention it does have a glass breaker on the back here, the raised and extended back spacer. It is a big mofo. I will tell you this is a fairly stiff pocket clip, but I didn't have any issues getting it in my pocket. It didn't want to come out quite easily because you see how it's ramped in this direction to go over the seam of the pocket easily, and it's not ramped like that on the way out. It's going to be a little bit tougher to get out, so this might be one of the knives that you do want to tie a lanyard to just to make things a little bit easier. Anyway, that's my overall impressions of the PMP Knives Grizzly, blacked out Grizzly. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next video.